Part of Chevrolet's legacy is the brand loyalty built up over generations. At this particular Chevy show, we're going to hear stories of sons and daughters honoring their parents through their mutual and enduring admiration of everything bow tie. Join us as they share their dream rides. Welcome to Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides. Today we celebrate Chevys by starting off with a variety of rides from the 50s, because perhaps nothing is as iconic as the Finn 57 Chevy.
This is a 1957 Chevy convertible, owned it since 1973. Convertibles are very rare. Most of them are out in Arizona. That's where this car came from. A guy by the name of Pete Kaufman in Phoenixville. His aunt owned it and he bought it from his aunt. And this is how this one got here. Had a minor restore in the late 80s. The bumpers, the grill was re-chromed 30 years ago. And had a full restore 8 years ago. Basically everything gets stripped down to nothing. The frame was in good shape, but as far as the body panels were concerned, we started digging in and we found rust everywhere. The guy that did it, Wheels in Motion in Pottstown, said, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. The frame went out and got sandblasted, and then it got painted. The only original part on the body itself is the hood and the trunk. Everything else was replaced. It took 3.5 years to do it. It's black cherry. It's a black base coat with red metal flake in the clear. It does play tricks on you. The interior is simple, it's rolled and plated. The original seat covers are underneath it. Nothing fancy. When we set out to do it, we were going to do an original 60s, some old, some new. We put disc brakes on it. As you can see, we left the generator in. We didn't go to the alternator. If I sold it, my nieces and nephews would kill me. And my great nieces and nephews. So, yep, I'm not going to get rid of it. It's a driver. I drive it, so I'm going to enjoy it.
It's a 1956 Chevy 3100 pickup. It's chopped 4 inches, made into a 5-window cab. Rain gutters missing, firewall shaved, cowls shaved, French parking lights, shaved front bumper, whole rear of the truck's completely all remodified. It's actually a factory Arizona bought bed. All the pockets were all extended on the rear. Put in flush mount tail lights, LED line of fire across the bottom under the bed, the tailgate's all shaved and everything else. And then I took, it's a 56 original bed, and then I put like a 70 Chevy inner fender on to do the tub to get the big tires and wheels underneath it. So a nice little flow. The truck's kind of unique. It does have a keyless start. Everything's all on one little key fob. I open the doors, start the truck, everything with a key fob. So the big unique part about the truck is the 409. It's a 63 original cast iron block, all Edelbrock, top end, heads, intake, 2.4. It's all dressed up with a nice little cam. Does pretty good. Paint, it's a tangerine metallic over a silver metallic paint. Quite a few coats of paint and quite a few coats of clear. Like every coat of paint you put on this color changes. It could have been a whole lot darker if he would have put another coat or two on, but did a lot of test panels before we got exactly what I wanted, and I did a real good job on the paint. Pretty much the interior of the trucks are all steel in that year, and I wanted to keep the unique look of dash and all that stuff. It's not a real intense interior, but he did a real nice job on it. It was just on a whim, basically. I mean, it's one of them deals where you look at it for a while and you decide what you want to do and you go ahead with the changes. So pretty much what the truck's been. It's an 8-year build, so been a lot of alterations and changes of the changes and everything else. This truck's never going to be done. Never done as long as I own it. That's a continuous thing. So.
1956 Corvette. I've actually got the car from a friend of the family here. He had it for a long time. Sitting in a barn, he was a big duck hunter, and the car was just buried under duck decoys. I got pictures. I drug this thing out of the barn. It was basically a bare body on the frame. I wasn't ready to build the car yet because I was in the middle of another Chevelle project, so I sat in the car for 13 years, and it was in boxes. And then just 5 years ago, I finally started working on it. I just kind of got finished with it last month. I actually was leaning towards going black hose and black body, and then at the last minute, my wife saw a silver one. She loved I actually painted the car in 2014, so the silver and the white are both from the 2014 Corvette. Basically, I love the fuel injection emblem that the 57 had the first year for fuel injection. I kind of cloned the old ZZ 430 motor that Chevy put out. They made a 430 horse 350 with the Holly Terminator EFI setup. So it's a 56, but I got the 57 fuel injection emblem on it. Everything's basically in the interior is stock except for the gauges and the steering wheel. The only thing I changed. I just liked the way they were designed back then, so I pretty much kept it original looking. All the cars I built in the past, I've always went with like a sleeper look. I always had steel wheels with dog dish hubcaps, and I wanted something different, so I went with the 17-inch built specialty wheels. It's just been a long project. The guy sold it to my father, I should say, that he worked with. He sold it because he found out he had cancer, and they basically gave him a month to live before he got to build it. So he sold it to my father. We sat on it, and then just when I started working on it, my dad ended up getting cancer, and he just passed away this past winter. So I was trying to get the car done before my dad passed away, but didn't get to it. My dad's name was Phil, and the first day I took it down for a ride, the radio has the name of the song, the artist, and the radio station. Scrolls through all three of them. As soon as I pulled down, a song by Phil Collins came on. And instead of saying Phil, and then Collins, and the name of the song, and then the radio station, it just says Phil. I never really believed in that kind of stuff, but after seeing that, it kind of changed my mind a little bit.
Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides as being brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. Evans Cooling Systems, the solution to overheating and corrosion. Magic Creeper, ready rain or shine. And by Dustless Blasting, it's the future of surface preparation. In the middle of a Chevy-only show, you might find the occasional Ford. That's because the show's rules allow in anything Chevy-powered.
This is a 1934 Ford three-window coupe. The Chevy's what makes it go. This is a 1995 Ramjet 350, 350 horsepower. Fuel injected. The plenum was removed, sent to Arizona and had it chrome plated, so the engine's basically all chrome now. This is a Gibbons body. They went out of business now, but this car was built 2001 to 2003. It has a TCI frame under it from Ontario, California, and they handle well. I love driving it. You can throw it into the turns. It's like a little foreign car. The only thing it doesn't like Pennsylvania roads, because you only have 3 inches of travel in the rear suspension because they're coil over. Been showing it 10 years already, so probably have a few more years in my category here until I get too old that I can't get down to clean it. The whole front suspension is polished aluminum chrome. It has 4-wheel power disc brakes. The calipers are all polished aluminum. Like I say, I'm meticulous with what I have and take care of it.
The make model is a 1941 GMC. They refer to it as a cab-over engine. In 2000, I made the decision to get away from Corvettes, antique cars, muscle cars. I wanted to build a street truck, and I purchased a 47 GMC pickup truck. Got finished paying for that, took about 10 steps, and I saw a 46 GMC cab-over. My life changed after that. I had envisioned the truck as you see it now. I wanted it blue, black fenders, and a step-side pickup truck. I scoured the country looking for one. I was hoping to find one completed, to no avail. So I bought the sheet metal for the front of the truck from a gentleman out in Omaha, Nebraska. Paid a whopping $200. Put on my landscaping trailer. My wife, my dogs, and I, we brought it back home to Baltimore, Maryland. All this is sitting on an 81 Chevrolet short wheelbase truck frame. It has a Mercruiser engine in it, but it's been changed over from electronic fuel injection to carburetor and drop-in MSD ignition. Presently, it's got a 700 R4 behind it. It makes it really nice for highway speeds. There's an outfit in Ontario, Canada that manufactures pickup beds. And through a fax machine, we send enough information faxes together with drawings, even trace places on the frame. and we came up with this pickup. The steering was probably the biggest issue because the gearbox for the power steering is down 18 inches lower than where the steering column would come out. And it's also about 3 inches further back in the truck. So it has 7 universal joints in the steering, but it's there. The color on the truck is a Cadillac sports car color. It's real close to being the Bosun blue that this truck was original. And it was a 2-ton stake body. Now it's a little half-ton pickup truck. Probably the neatest thing about owning the truck is the reaction. People tooting their horns and giving you the thumbs up and hollering out at you and all that. To me, that's rewarding. Now I have a chance to share the hobby with the public.
Time now to learn about Dustless Blasting's tools and opportunities with Brian Loans.
If there's one thing the folks at Dustless Blasting know, it's that surface preparation is not a one-size-fits-all business. That's the reason why the company manufactures different size tools for the job. I'm here with Benny from Dustless Blasting, and we're going to talk about just that.
Well, that's right, Brian. You know, we've been in business for quite some time, and we recognize the need that one tool does not fit all. So we build a number of machines. As a matter of fact, we build 5 different size machines. So that could be for the automotive. As soon as a guy mentions truck, we go up to the next size. Sure. As soon as a guy starts talking about 18-wheelers or even bigger structures of that nature, we even go up to the 800 without any problem whatsoever. So with that, we want to be sure that we size the tool for the job.
Just like any other sort of operation, you need to have the right equipment to do it the right way.
I mean, that says 1,000 words, just that by itself, because one tool doesn't do everything that you need it to do. Sometimes we're dealing with frames, sometimes we're dealing with bodies, sometimes we're just dealing with parts of cars that are being restored.
And this is high-quality American manufactured product made right here in Texas.
Well, you know, we often do say that, made here in the USA and they're Texas tough. So we've got the logo to prove that as well, so absolutely.
Amazing facility you have here, an amazing business you build, and again, so many varieties, so many options for somebody if they want to do the industrial side of this business, or if there's somebody, like you said, who is in the real heavy end of things.
Well, true. I mean, and that's why we do that. You know, again, that's why we build so many different machines, and we need to have those for our customers.
Benny, thank you very much. Talked about how these are manufactured. Next week, we're going to take you through the process of how the tools get made here at Dustless Blasting.
Welcome back to Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides. Up next, we have 2 yellow 67 Chevys. Apart from that, they have absolutely nothing in common. One's restored, one's modified. Let's start with the restored.
67 Chevelle Malibu L79. It's a 5-year restoration. The car was given to me by my dad 15 years ago and decided to restore it. Gonna make it a driver with the best paint job I could do. And then my body man and I said, you know, there's only 8 more bolts to get this thing off the frame, which was maybe the worst thing or the best thing, because then it became a very OCD in me that I didn't even know I had. And every time I looked at something, and it just had to be right. And it had to have the right bolt. Aftermarket brackets just didn't work. It had to be the original piece. Look for all NOS stuff. Every piece of chrome on the outside is NOS. The back bumper's the only piece that was re-chromed. The front bumper's even NOS, never been on a car before. Taillight bezels, they're impossible to find, and I refuse to put aftermarket taillight bezels. Just got lucky. One guy in Florida was getting rid of his inventory, and he had tons of NOS chrome, and I bought just everything. And I've been a Chevelle guy all my life. Since 15, I had a 67 Malibu, and my dad had a Super Sport, so I just knew the car. Or if I didn't, I found out what it was. Just asked a lot of questions. Just got a little crazy. Took the car from a daily driver to a trailer queen.
I have a 1967 Nova SS Pro Touring car. There wasn't no easy parts. Every time you do something, you run into something. It's got a bow tie stage 4 700R4 transmission. It's got a 425 horsepower small block. It's got a Moser rear. It's got air conditioning, dual specialty wheels, leather trunk. approximately $20,000 in a full grain leather interior, 4 bucket seats, custom made back seats to go around the 1,000 amp stereo system that we have behind the seats. Riding on them seats is like sitting on air ride. I mean, you just sink right into them. It's awesome. Did all the marbleizing on the door panels and custom stainless steel perforated metal, and all the marbleizing matches the engine air cleaner cover. The intake, it's a custom made. It's made out of a 32 Ford lawnmower tractor, and it's all hand banged and handmade, and then we put the grain in it. A lot of hours went in that. The paint's a Ferrari yellow, 1981. Bugs love it. The whole underneath of the car is done. It's got a 4-link, coilovers, front's all classic chassis works. It handles like my 07 Corvette. I just finished it up with power windows and stuff last year, so I'm pretty much done with it. Done all I could do with it. I don't know, I was thinking about selling it, but we'll see. Every time I think about it, I change my mind.
Evans is a waterless engine coolant, and to state the obvious, it has no water. Now, water's been used for a long time because water has superior thermal conductivity characteristics. However, water must remain in its liquid state to do the job. The challenges with water is that water has a lower boiling point, 212. Under pressure, maybe 240 or 250. But you have to expend a lot of energy to keep water below its boiling point. With Evans, waterless doesn't mean liquidless, as a lot of people might make that assumption. But Evans remains a liquid even at the higher temperatures and has a boiling point of 375 degrees. That means it won't form vapor, it won't build pressure, and that decreases a lot of stress on your cooling system. Evans will last forever, and if you are going to operate at 2 or 3 pounds of pressure versus 14 or 15 pounds of pressure, that increases the life of your radiators, hoses, seals, and gaskets. The other thing with Evans, again, without the water, you avoid corrosion, you stop electrolysis, which is a big problem when you start degrading metals in your radiator. Now, this is what a radiator might look like under the effects of water over time. But with Evans, it will stay looking like it ought to. So you don't have to worry about corroded metal, you don't have to worry about the degradation of your metals with Evans, because Evans keeps the additives in place, the additives remain soluble, you never have to change it out, you don't have to add anything to it. It's a permanent solution to your cooling system problems.
Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides is being brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. Hurst, America's #1 shifter. Evapo-Rust, super safe rust remover. And by Dustless Blasting, it's the future of surface preparation. Besides showcasing Chevys, Maple Grove Raceway is also rich in drag racing history and has inspired some of the show participants.
The 1992 Corvette. It was built July 2nd, 1992. The unique date about that is it's the day that they built the 1 millionth Corvette. This is the 1,016th Corvette. It also has a Z07 performance package. It's one of 738 made. They took a standard LT1, put the big brakes off the Z01 and heavy-duty suspension. And also the nickname for the car. I call it Just a Bit of Kryptonite. Years before I ever knew I owned this car, my son and I came to this track, and there was a beautiful black 57 Chevy, made a quarter-mile pass. Even second gear, his front wheels were still in the air. He ran a 6.9 second, 200-mile-an-hour pass. So we went down in the pit area, and he had a stereo system. He had turned up really loud, and the song by Three Doors Down came on called Kryptonite. A few years go by, my wife actually bought me this car as a gift, but it was blown up, so I had to rebuild it. My son and I were in the garage, we're tearing it apart, trying to figure out what's wrong with it. Kryptonite comes on. So I'm looking at the car, I'm thinking, that's it, I'm gonna call this car Just a Bit of Kryptonite. And it even says right in the song, you walked in, you bumped your head. I fixed you up, I put you back on solid ground. If it wouldn't be for me, you'd be dead. And that's what I did with this car. I saved it from near death. We spent a year just tearing it apart, trying to figure out what's wrong with it. We got lucky, it was just a blowed head gasket. But I'm a machinist by trade, so I blueprinted the engine out, port and polished the heads. I put a GM hot cam in it. I have an electric water pump on it, so it makes a lot more power But the beauty side of that, if you keep your foot off of it, if I cruise at 55 miles an hour, I'll get better than 30 miles per gallon with it. It's part of the family. It's them. My kids are fighting it. My daughter helped out with it. Matter of fact, when I got it, she's in the Army. And I didn't get it done in time, but she had to go to the rack. After 6 months, she'd come home for a couple of weeks. I handed her the keys. I said, take it for a ride. So she come back and goes, I love it. I want one. So she has a ruby red 40th anniversary, 93, and my son later then bought a 94. It's a Corvette now, yes.
It's a 1958 Chevy Impala. It's been 23 years under construction, except for the air cleaners and the radio are in stock. My uncle had one back when I was only about 5 years old, and I loved the interior of that car, and that's what it came to be. And I finally found one. It was in pretty bad shape. No floors, the motor was seized, the frame was cracked. Started restoring it from there. The first thing I bought for the car was the floors, and I found them in Hemming's book out of a four-door, and we put the complete floor in one piece. 1958, first year from 348. And it has a 348 motor in it, and it was originally a 4-barrel motor. And I found a set of 3.2s for it, took off the 4-barrel because it was an option. And we went from there. But the car, I like just the way it sits. It's no Continental kit, no skirt. It looks still like a normal car yet. It's not totally 50s. It's a 50s car, but it's not total 50s yet. First thing I bought at the flea market was a dice. I sat in the back for 23 years in the restoration, and that's the first thing that went in the car, the dice. Well, I'm going to just drive it and enjoy it a little bit. After all this time, I want to enjoy the car. The make, model, and year of this vehicle is a 1949 Chevy 3100 pickup truck. We bought a truck, and it was bare metal, and it was rusty. We actually had it sandblasted and epoxy primered it. And after that, I added color and sanded it all back down, sanded it through certain spots that I wanted it to look old, put a special solution on it to make it rust out almost instantly. I mean, it took hours of sanding to get it the way I wanted it to look, but I'm happy with the way it came out. I found a bed in a local junkyard. I didn't realize it was a long bed until my buddy told me, good job, you bought a long bed. So I took 18 inches out of it. The bed floor actually came out of a buddy's truck, the 2006 Ford F350. There's no air ride in it. My friend did an old school 6-inch Z-notch drop to the frame, which I never heard of. And I didn't want to put air ride in it. He goes, dude, let's do an old school chop. I said, did you ever do one? He goes, no. He's like, but I know how to weld. I said, perfect, let's do it. And we did it. The suspension in the rear, it's actually the factory leaf springs. Front end is actually a 74 Pacer front end that was in the chassis when we bought it. It has a Mustang 2 steering rack in it because the Pacer rack went bad, and if you call a local parts store asking for parts for a 74 Pacer, they pretty much laugh you off the phone. Well, that's actually our second attempt for an engine. The first attempt was a 305 GM crate motor that I had laying around. We were running 15 pounds of boost, which anybody watching this knows that's way too much boost for a factory 305. So broke all 8 piston skirts, put the 350 in it, reduced the boost down to 6 pounds. So far, I got almost 500 miles on it, and the thing runs great. It's fun to drive. You get a lot of head turns. I built the truck in memory of my father when he passed. And I built the truck for my son, and we all have the same first name. Again, I named the shop after my father for my son. With some hard work and a little luck, hopefully I can pass the business on to my son.
Next week, Dustless Blasting presents Dream Rides Journeys to Louisville, Kentucky for part 1 of our coverage of the National Street Rod Association show. See you then.